was always about spirituality. So let's get started. We need to commit. What if this next change is huge and we're still in the state of being in our heads and we want to move to our hearts? And what if we're trying to imagine the next steps with our heads? It won't work. We have to get ready to move to our hearts to make this change. I think that's what everybody feels who is in education and would come to a conference like this, that we have to awaken by moving to our hearts. So my whole set of exercises aims at that. It's just to help the teacher, because you want to support yourself first. So the main point will be move to your heart. And the secondary point will be change yourself first. If you want to transform the world, transform yourself, and then you're the best chance of transforming the world. But also, because this is a lonely business, we're on the front edge of a movement here. We need a lot of nurturing. We need a lot of pats on the back because it can get lonely. So my exercises also aim at that. So just terminology, just so we're all on the same page. I'll say oversimplified versions of what Lisa will write in her book: head, heart, left brain, right brain. Ian McGilchrist will talk a lot about the left and right lobe. And then Dan Siegel will talk a lot about the vertical integration of the prefrontal cortex with the limbic area, of the horizontal integration of left and right. I'll talk more about the way Lisa says it, that integration is the key. And she'll say the upper and top down and bottom up perceptions, and the orientation of the awakened awareness and the achieving awareness, and how the quest orientation is the epitome of what we want to achieve. And I'll try to speak about that, but in terms of actual practical things you can do. All of my examples are very simple in the things you can do. So you'll hear me say analytic and intuitive, head, heart. Adult and children, moderns and ancients, the West and the East, if we oversimplify things, line up this way. Really, in today's world, it is changing so rapidly that there are people all over in the north, south, east, west. So it's not that simple, but historically, this was the way that we lined up. And I should say, Tobin Hart also, thank you to the Integrative Mind. His latest book is wonderful at speaking about head, heart, and thinking in the gut, but then in the whole body. And really, we should make one point at the beginning. There is no separation of any of this. All of the different parts need each other and are always totally integrated, like everything in the universe. There is nothing that's not connected to everything else. We separate them academically to talk about them, to cite a study that focused on one thing, but it's not an academic issue. Nature is not academic, it's real and it's whole. So everything already is integrated. It's us, it's we who try to reintegrate thinking about it as we make our scientific studies and as we speak and communicate to each other. There is nothing that was separate. And I should also make the point, the head and the heart are not integrated in the ideal case equally. The heart must decide. And the head is the servant. Like Ian McGilchrist says in The Master and the Emissary, the right brain or the heart would be the master. It should be. But for 4,000, by some scholars, 8,000 years, we have been on a headlong pursuit of the head. And we got ourselves into maybe some trouble. Maybe the discord in the world today is, if we oversimplify it, because of that. So in education, give the teachers And then therefore the students the chance to get back to the heart, and maybe we can turn things around. So some ways to lead from your head. If you were to lead from the head, which I do not recommend, analyzing, articulating, solving, being logistical, planning, being right, quick to respond, intense, heavy, serious, stop that or else. You're wrong. Don't even tell me your way because I said so. Not that that's wrong, but it would be wrong to lead from that. Some ways to lead with your heart. Let's see if I can get this thing. Intuiting, observing, connecting, feeling, pausing, centering, touching, empathizing, eye contact, slow to respond, keep it light, playful, and humorous. Let's go another way. I see what you're feeling. Do you think that will work? Instead of it's right or it's wrong, does it work? And if you pair this all up and start to look at ways to really change yourself, you start to appreciate the integration as long as you're leading from the heart. So we'll go over 5 opportunities. 1, for changing yourself first, how to pay attention to yourself. 2, how to let yourself be the true teacher. I'm not telling you how to be the true teacher. I'm sure there are wonderful teachers in the audience here and people who are in charge of them. I'm just describing it. How to be the intuitive teacher, and a really fun test of awakening. I think I have a cute little test that you can check yourself several times a day, every day, to see, am I awake or not? Am I falling asleep? It's not a state that you arrive at. Once awake, you are not totally awake from now on. It is a process of becoming that is always happening, and you're always moving forward, awakening more, or moving backward, falling asleep. There is no still, there is no middle. It's forward or backward at all times. So it is a wonderful question to ask of yourself. How am I doing? Am I waking up right now, or am I falling back asleep? And that's the same as in meditation. If there is anybody who achieves no mind and stays there, God bless. I don't. The rest of us fall in and out of no mind. But every time we arrive back at no mind, do you pat yourself on the back and say, oh, thank you, I'm back? Or do you get upset about it and have like a new problem? Well, the test of awakening will be to constantly pat yourself on the back all day long. Oh, by not being awake and realizing it, I woke back up. So the glass is half full. Let's do it, the first one. I would like to run the workshop where it's interactive, but you do your own exercise by yourself, and I'll just recommend it. Then we'll articulate about it and speak academically and say, what is that called and what did we just do? But first, let's do it. Ready? First exercise, first opportunity to transform yourself. Picture someone with whom you have a problem. Now, if you don't have any of those in your life, good. I want to live at your house. But if you can picture someone with whom you have a problem, and now picture that it can get better, maybe that you even believe it is getting better. Whatever is not so good, you can see shifting. How are you going to do it? Don't answer that question. Why? Don't answer that question. What exactly will you do for your solution? Don't even think about it. If you can move your heart toward, I think this can work, you are doing the first exercise. You have an opportunity every time you have a problem with somebody, every day, to do this exercise. Start to believe it can work because you're now in your heart. And that's it. Now tell your head, what do you think? How are we going to do that? Ask your head, what's a good path? How? But first, believe. And this shift is leading with the heart. And don't we usually go the other way? Or a lot of times in our life, we say, well, how am I going to fix that? And it's a question that we're asking our head of the logistics of how something will get solved. Not a good question. The question is, I think I can do it. Now, how do we think we should do it? You always lead with the heart. So I wrote the Bill of Rights for teachers to myself over 50 years of being in schools and wishing I had these rights. So they're really like permissions to myself to awaken. And once I read Lisa's book, I said, oh, I'm going to call these permissions to awaken and transform yourself. But I always had the Bill of Rights. I would hand these in at the back of a paper when I'm getting the PhD, and the professors are like, whoa, what is this? I was always this outlier, but there's 40 of them, and we'll use the first 4 in our 4 opportunities. They articulate like an aphorism. What is it we just said? What is it we really wish to have? Well, number 1 was, if I want to change myself, I want to have the permission to awaken. I may begin to move toward a new possibility before I see how to get there. Almost every training in education since the 1800s would have asked a student, how are you going to get there first? The question is, do you believe you can? That's the question. And then how you're going to get there comes from that question. Audre Lorde wrote in Sister Outsider, don't try to dismantle the master's house with the master's tools. Ian McGilchrist's master is the right brain, the heart. And it would not make sense for us to try to imagine and build a new kind of education with our heads. We'll just be spinning our wheels. So first, we have to believe we'll get there. We have to take on that posture. And then from that position will come how to get there. We just have to believe that the net will appear. So there's a story. It's the 1990s. I have a contract. I'm under contract to the World Trade Center Association. My clients are the Fortune 500. I'm teaching training and education in the business world. And I have an appointment at the Twin Towers. Now, this is a decade, almost a decade before the very sad tragedy of the bombing of the Twin Towers. Little known, the day before my appointment, and terrorists did plant a car bomb in the garage underneath the Twin Towers. It exploded it. Nothing happened. It didn't hardly hurt anything except a few of the cars right next to that van. So when I get there for my appointment, they have beefed up security to the point where we're just simply checked when we get through the lobby for our briefcases. Now, this is amazing. I don't mean to be an alarmist or tell a sad story or be sensational. I have a point. We didn't see it coming. Who saw that coming? Everybody thought America, who would ever attack America on our own soil? And then could they take down the Twin Towers? It was an impossibility, because you look at a situation with the master's tools. You keep looking at things as something to be tweaked. So a danger for our movement would be, or for a single teacher to change oneself, would be to look at the situation as it is today and then start to figure how to change it. What you have to do is imagine it beyond where it is today, the state where it's already good, and then ask how to get there. But you have to be there in your heart. So now fast forward, it's 2002, 9/11. The actual 9/11, when the towers came down, was 9/11, 2001. It's exactly that day, 2002. I have switched jobs. I am now a teacher in an alternative school. I'm not teaching the Fortune 500. I'm in a school. And yes, it's a very serious subject. It's very sad. But I'm sorry, it's a funny story. For my first day, my first week of teaching, on that day, I decided to do a chemical experiment and blow up a balloon with propane and oxygen. Bam, huge explosion. The whole school goes into lockdown. Oh, by the way, this school is less than 40 miles from ground zero across Lower Manhattan Bay. I'm in New Jersey doing this, and the whole of New Jersey and New York are on hyper alert because there was possible reports that there would be another bomb on the anniversary day. I totally forgot that because I'm starting a new career. I have made this giant switch to being in a school, and I'm so excited to be with the kids and this wonderful principal, maybe one of the best people at any job that I've ever seen. And so he comes running in my room. He sees it's a chemical experiment, and he goes, "All right, you just wait there." And he goes back to his office and calls off the fire department, the police, and then the rest of the teachers to say, "We're not in lockdown. It's okay. Don't worry about it." He comes back into my room and says, and here comes the point of the story. "You could have sent an email. Next time, would you please send an email?" And he and I begin a very, very close friendship. He's one of my best friends to this day. And after I was teaching there for 7 years, he said, "I realized that day, and then with the successes you had with students who are in an alternative school of healing them, whatever you do with all that spiritual stuff, I don't get, but I had to change myself. I had to be transformed in order to have you in my school." and he really was that person. He would move from his heart into a blind area, having no experience of how to handle something, and then find out how to do it. And he did this to me over and over again, I guess, or I did it to him. I would have dangerous things with the kids. I constantly colored outside the lines. And this is the way to move. It is a high risk. You don't know what you're doing, but you're moving because your heart said to move. And then you find out what you're going to do about the situation you get yourself into. This is how to move. And we're going to have to be brave. We're at the brink of a very, very large change. So get ready. Opportunity 2. What's a true teacher? All right. Well, by my definition, picture it this way. Do you ever have a student that tell you something and it completely changes you, and you have to just stop and say, "I don't know what I was just doing, but you just changed me. Thank you." And you thank the student or the situation. That's teaching. You have just, in front of a student, stopped telling, you were listening, you became the student, and now you became grateful. To me, you just modeled the best thing you could ever wish a student to do with you. Be a grateful learner. So let's try it. Your assignment right now is commit to yourself for some time in the next week, but it could be the next hour, or it could be the next minute with this wonderful teacher you have right in front of you right now. You just commit to look for a transformational moment. Now, I know I'm supposed to be showing you exercises of how to get transformed, and I just told you, "Oh, you want to get transformed? Then transform yourself." Yeah, that's how it works. If you're not looking for a transformation, something that will change you, and you don't believe you can already go there, well, don't even try. But if you can look for it, you'll find it. It's there. The quest orientation is to expand your perceptual field and have it so rich with your belief that you think there is something in this day for you, that the world is taking care of you and it is ripe with opportunity. It's a state of mind. It's not a technique. It's a state of mind. So if you are expectant of the miracle, and then you'll see it. So the miracle is Somebody said something to you that transformed you, and you got a chance to say, thank you. That's it. So the Bill of Rights, number 2, states that and gets academic. Learn something from your student that transforms you. Then show your gratitude. In other words, truly teach by modeling true learning. So another story. I'm in Shanghai. It's 2007. We're going to China to teach in a summer school, the Shanghai International Studies University. And so I have students who have come for the summer from all different districts, and they're anywhere from 12 years old to adult. I have a doctor, I have some homemakers in my class. There's a real mixture, and it was wonderful. They're telling us all about their culture. I learned more about China than they learned from me. And so the first day, we're going to have a debate. I'm going to teach you how to debate. We're very good at debating in America. We can argue a lot. And so they're going to be mixed into 2 groups at round tables to have a debate. I give opposite viewpoints to each table, and I say, now you're going to support your viewpoint and argue against the other group. And now they start to discuss their point. We're 10 minutes in, and I'm over in the corner of the room crying. I start to lose it. It was so beautiful. I can see it to this day. Every single person at every table is leaning in. And who's ever talking at that table, even if it's a 12-year-old, is like the most important thing they've ever heard. And then by the time we start the debate, my lesson totally failed. They were terrible at debating. It wouldn't matter which group started to speak, the other group would go, I can see that. And then they would say, I see that opposite view. I needed that opposite viewpoint. And as a matter of fact, I could see a middle way. And so while the debating failed, I learned a great lesson. By the end of the day, I'm saying thank you to them. Like, you guys just taught me something I'm going to use in teaching for the rest of my life. It's not that I never thought of the middle way. It's not that I don't know the yin and the yang, the opposites. It's that I didn't learn it that well. I didn't feel it done so genuinely right in front of me. So I woke up on that one again and again that day. And so I, in the end, got to be a good teacher. I was learning from them and thanking them. So the day was a success. Number 3, intuitive teaching. This is my whole thing. This is what I've been thinking since 1987. I started writing about it, but I was doing it since the 70s. I think it was early in the 70s. I had an intuitive notion come to me during a class, and I just completely switched and obeyed what was coming through me. And it was a very good lesson. If Andy Leaf is watching, he remembers that he was sitting, you were sitting there in the room. Intuitive teaching is letting an intuition come into you. Even though you may be the one who's doing the teaching, you might also be listening. You might be listening to yourself, the words that come out of your mouth, as if they're not yours, because maybe you're so open, they aren't yours. So let me give you an example. Let's do an exercise, and then we'll articulate it. You ready? Little tiny exercise. This will take approximately 60 seconds. Take one hand, either one, and close it. Now, without thinking, try not to think about your hand. Oh, my fingers are pudgier than they used to be before the pandemic, or any thoughts of association, or why is he doing this now? Just let your mind, let thoughts go through if they come in, or else block them if you have that ability. And now, slowly, while still being in observation mode, open your hand. And now, close your eyes or just go to your inner vision in your mind and replay what you just did, including your senses, what you felt, and in case you heard or smelled or tasted anything besides what you saw. That's it. And you can do this over and over and over during the day. You're clearing, you are meditating, but it's in motion while the day is happening, while you're doing things. You cleared out, touching that which is happening with your mind, with your head, your thinking. You just became an observer. If you can do this while you're speaking to your own self, you can have enough clarity, open space to receive intuitions, even though you're active. And that's the intuitive teacher. So the aphorism is listen for an intuitive insight, even while you're speaking. But it gets better. It's now back in the 70s. I just became a Waldorf teacher. And Rudolf Steiner started the Waldorf movement. He's always saying the thinking, feeling, and willing. So my nephew had made this poster, so I kept it because I felt like that's Waldorf teaching. 3 heads are better than 1. But we're doing a little exercise in the class. So picture this. Every time I do this, a science demonstration with the kids, I was a science teacher, I would let them first go into an observation mode. Okay, let thoughts just go right through your mind, just observe. And I would maybe light a candle and we'd watch it. Then second, we would replay it inside. Now, every kid, when we would compare notes, focuses on something different. This is very important to the larger part of this story. Then we would draw the experiment. So in essence, doing the observation a third time. And then we would write down what we observed, what our senses observed, not anything thought about it yet. And then finally, 4 to 1, we would go to an analysis. What were you thinking while that happened? What are conclusions? Why do you think it happened? What do you call this? Is there any way that humans can use this? All those kinds of things that are coming to the mind are honored, and in fact, usually clearer than if you had jumped to conclusions too early. But the 4 to 1 offset is to undo the last 4,000 to 8,000 years of moving more toward the head. We're moving more back to the heart. So this is a very simple thing to do, and it doesn't have to be a science experiment that you do it with. A teacher can do this, and guess who's getting transformed the most? Perhaps the teacher. To do this exercise takes you back into observation mode again. Very simple to do. And then here's the best part. In the last 10 years, I've been doing this since the 70s. With everybody, with my kids, I'm raising them with school, with the Fortune 500 in the prisons. But then it hits me in the last 10 years, we're not doing science. We're not just observing. We're solving problems. What do you do when a serious problem comes into your life? Right away, most of us start to think of what to do. We go back to the mind. And if these overlap, these different stories and different aphorisms I'm trying to give you, then I'm doing my job. They're all really one thing. Everything is connected. Well, when we get a bad situation in our lives, do we stop, look at it, not touching it, then let it replay in us and resound, still not touching it? It's very hard to do. What we do when things get serious is we start to go to our mind a little bit too much, maybe. And so I'm recommending an exercise that can be done very simply on light things so that maybe we access them on important things. We want to open up that perceptual field to existential questions. Why is this happening in my life? And if something is replaying in you often enough, maybe a person who you have a problem with, and that all of a sudden you go to try to go to sleep, but you see them again, and it's replaying in you, well, stop and look. And maybe don't touch it. Just let it replay and then let go of it. You've now offered up to higher wisdom than you can ever have. But it is yours too. And you get to access higher wisdom by not touching it with your lower self. Your higher self offers it to the Godhead, maybe. So this little simple exercise really has quite deep implications. And finally, the test of awakening. So this was the final test when I taught the guys in prison. I taught in the women's prison. I taught in the men's prison. I was with them 3 months, 5 days a week, 6 hours a day. So we bonded. We got very close, and we had a very high level of trust by the final test. So somewhere in the middle of the 3 months, we had already tested out on reading and math. And the prison said I could pretty much do anything I wanted. And they knew I was going to do all these psychological, spiritual tests and exercises. They had no idea really what I was doing. They just let me have fun. So I had a lot of fun. And the final test is look at a color. And I can still see the guys because the Vera Pathways, Vera Justice Pathways Project guys are all in the room also watching me do the final lesson, and they see all my guys. And then I say, just look at a color. This is the final test. And then I take a projector and project a big red screen. And I say, look at the red. And everybody is in the room except me is completely confused. How could this be any kind of an important test? So let's do it now, and then I'll tell you why I did it and what it is. I'll articulate the lesson. Ready? Take a color in your environment right now where you're sitting. Maybe it's a piece of your clothing. Maybe it's something on the desk or the wall. A color you like. Just look around and pick which one you're going to look at. And for a very short period of time, it does not have to be long, just look at it for a minute. And now ask, does that color look better, the same, or worse than the last time you stopped to look at that color? Not the object, the color. It's a very good question, it turns out. If you can now take this one step further, try to make the color look better, more beautiful. My favorite is doing this with faces, but we're doing it with color right now. If you can change it, then you are the master of your destiny. You are actually commanding your presence. You are waking up right now. You're moving toward more wakefulness, not less. And it's always in your power. And I dare say there is no situation where less wakefulness is better than more. No matter what's happening around you, you can always bring more presence to it. And it always makes things get better. And so now you picture now, come into the classroom with me. The guys are about to be released from prison after some 5, 10, 15 years, and they're going to go join society again. And I said to them, will anything go worse if you can bring your presence more to the moment? So just look at a color or someone's face who you look at all the time, or something you always look at, and just check yourself. How am I doing? How am I doing today? How am I doing right now? Oh, I'm phoning it in. I'm falling asleep. And could you wake up a little bit right there and then? And then if you do, would the relationship with the person you talk to next be a little better? Would your job go a little better? Would your homework go better if you're studying homework for your junior college so you can go get a job? What will go wrong? And how easy is that? And how much do we find ourselves falling asleep for long periods of time that you could be grateful for the wake up. So just wake yourself up. So here I am again, telling you how to wake up and how to transform. Yeah, by waking up. I'm sorry if there's any shortcuts, tell me about it, because I never found them. All I know is you just do it. You just do it. So if I articulate it, look at something you've seen before. Note whether it looks better, the same, or worse than before. Now look to yourself. You've just tested your awakened state. And you don't have to get sad about it or hard on yourself about it. If you're falling asleep, just say, oh, thank you for finding out. Last story. Oh, on the right there, that's the test I gave the guys. But then we just homed in just on the red one and let it fill the screen. And that is the test right there. And on the left, if you ever feel like accessing your childhood, there's the comparison. If you find out how things can taste as good as they tasted when you were a child, look as good as they look when you were a child. Oh, you're not waking up, you're becoming enlightened. That's the goal of life, isn't it? Turn back into who you were at the top of your game. So, last story. My dad used to say when I was a kid, I can't wait for tomorrow. And he'd always get one of us to say, there's 4 kids and my mom, and he'd get somebody to say, why? Oh, are we going to the movies? Oh, are we going to the beach? Is there something good tomorrow? And then he'd say, oh no, it's just that I get better looking every day. So after a while, he couldn't do it to us because we all knew, but then we did it to our kids. And then now I do it to my grandkids. So it's a family joke now. Okay. But he would say it in the morning more often than not. And as I got older, I thought about this. Why would you be saying, I can't wait till tomorrow in the morning? What he's saying is, I'm setting my intentions for the day. The world's going to look better to me. I'm going to have a good day. Everything's better looking. It's up to me. I have a choice of how I'm going to meet the world today. And that's what I pick. And he was very good at that. So I take that lesson and I say, the beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. Just wake yourself up and things get better and better and better. I know we are in a very sad moment in history. I know there are many people who are having a very difficult time right now. And I don't think I don't see it and don't feel it. I'm a cheerleader. I tell a lot of jokes and make people feel good by being silly. But I totally appreciate it. I just don't think anything other than going to your heart and waking up will help. I think this is what to do. And then from that state, think of what are we going to do about it? What are the logistics? Go to your head then and ask what to do. So head, heart, left brain, right brain. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. That's one of my favorites from Yogi Berra. And a little funny thing, he was playing baseball when I was a kid. I'm in New Jersey. He's playing at Yankee Stadium in New York, but then he comes back to Jersey, to Montclair, New Jersey, where there is a fork right at the beginning of town that if you take either side, it comes out in the same place. So what I think he was really doing, the reporters got real excited about this. This is his most famous quote. What he was really saying was, oh yeah, when I go home and get to Montclair, it doesn't matter which side of the fork I take. But he's famous for this, like a very, very esoteric statement. But isn't that the case with everything? Existential saving questions are all around us. And the answers, they're all around us all the time. You can take them very lightly, or you can look deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's always true that it is deeper. So thank you very much. Questions? I don't know how to do the muting and everything. You could unmute yourself.
Unmute ourselves. That was really interesting. Thank you so much. I kept thinking that basically we're in control of our own destiny. Like it's all within our choices that we make internally.
That's what I think. Thank you. Anybody else? We have a little bit of time left.
I was struck by how subtle the changes are that you asked us to make in each of those exercises, like so subtle that someone like myself who is much more conversant and used to thinking in my logical analytical mind, you know, it was really hard. I could feel the effort behind trying to do something so simple in its subtlety.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. It is. I had a guy from Spain when we did this on a Zoom to England say, oh, well, this is too easy. I teach guys all day long to do academic papers and do heavy duty citations. And you sound like you don't want that. And I said, well, and as I said, well, I started to speak and answer. I had no idea what I was going to say. And all of a sudden, out of my mouth comes, well, could they have a citation for an intuition? Would it be allowed to also say, this came in, and I'm going to put it in the category, at least for me, of highest regard. I think that was a good source. And just be allowed to say so, not that that would be a good source for anybody else necessarily, but that they were moved during their paper. And the guy got so excited. I said, well, that was an intuition, by the way. I never thought that until this moment. Yeah. Thank you.
John, do you know how to unshare the screen?
Unshare. Oh, yes. I think I do. Yes. Thank you.
That way we can all look at each other after this wonderful session. What I really like about a few things I want to name that. The first one is you make it as highly accessible. Something from within, something from ourselves, starting from self-transformation. I think I resonate a lot. There's a certain mentality that we're holding on the West to say we set out to change the world, to save the lives. In a Taoist, Lao Tzu, 2,500 years ago, already said it. If you purpose to set out to save the world, don't bother, because the world is already sacred. The second point I want to share, what I love really the most probably is each and every lived moment in our life can be a transformative moment. Kind of like what I shared in the opening meditation. And really every moment it's a daily spiritual experience moment by utilizing all the five senses, right? Just to smell, to feel, to touch. But there is an awakened, renewed sense of seeing everything that we see and take so for granted through a new lens, to awaken the sense of seeing the relationship we actually have. I love that. And the third one is a question, John, that you say you share this presentation, even though this is a smaller version of so many other things that, of course, would love to learn more. But then what are tangible programs or activities that the students and the teachers, the Fortune 500, they can utilize? Because we know awaken a sense into what extent that comes with long-lasting impact, that requires repetition, requires a nice routine to get to it. A lot of times even requires a little reminder, because we lose that sometimes. Yes. So is there an actual program that, for example, you have been testing out with schools over time?
No, I work in the background. I'm out of the closet just in this last year and a half. I have only worked in the background with a very small group at any one time, and just with a few people at any one time. I have been in schools where I didn't speak up at the faculty meeting. I didn't give a workshop. I didn't give any advice for 8 years in a row. It is just now that I started to come out in the last 2 years, and I'm writing down everything. I had notes. I have 600 pages of notes, but not that I shared with anybody as here are methods and exercises that if you repeat these and come back to it over and over, you will get farther and farther. I hear exactly what you're saying, I believe. Thank you very much. I would like to do that. And I think it's going to be a book, and I don't see it yet, but I think it comes from that Bill of Rights and the 20. And on my website, you would see also a workshop on intuitive education. And it has other examples. And I think I will put them all down with methodology so that someone could follow something. But you just gave me the courage to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to actually thank you. I think a lot of times when we talk about spirituality, it tends to get us all serious. I'm looking at everybody's faces right now. And everybody's kind of like, I know we're tired. But I also feel like as you finished your presentation, you basically said we really needed to go back into our childlikeness, or if that's even a word, but being more childlike, more innocent in looking at the world, more curious, more awake, basically. And I appreciated today that it was playful, and that there was a sense of almost a little bit of silliness, which is silliness to me is I'm actually a cancer survivor, and silliness is serious. It's good. And so I think that as we embark on our spirituality, I think it's definitely our own personal tastes and how we can implement it, our own personalities. But I also feel that there is a sense of joy that comes out of it. I wanted to know if you wanted to talk a little bit about that more, because there is a lot of joy that's coming out of you, a lot of this really happy, good energy that's coming out of you. And I feel that that's really something that if you're going to implement spirituality, you need to have that joy that it brings to you, particularly because if it's just dour, we're all going to sit around and meditate, it's going to be serious, the children aren't going to feel joy in it. And I want to know how to get that joy.
Well, thank you very much. Teachers are my favorite people because they want to do that, because they're with the children and they know what the children respond to. And the children would say, I want to have fun. I use the word fun in so many places on the website and in writings I've done and in workshops. What I really mean between you and I is eudaimonia, in Japanese kunatsu, to merge with something, or Goethe's letting the phenomena speak, or I could tell you 5 verses of the Tao that say this to me. I read over and over almost every morning, but I say fun because I'm just trying to be light about it. And yes, very silly, but that, and as you said, that everybody to his or her own, their own style. Some people are very serious and in the exact same place as another person who's acting outwardly very happy and silly. They're all good. But when I say fun, I really mean fun. If it isn't enjoyable to you on some level, whichever word you want to say for it, you're not good for them. You have to love what you are doing. One of my permissions is, I wish I could teach what I love. Now, we can't, but there's so many other things we will have to teach. I understand that. I worked within every administration I ever worked with in a school, and then in the Fortune 500. Oh my goodness, I couldn't talk about this at all until lunchtime. And then we had some pretty good discussions or went out afterward. And I really enjoy when the other person starts to light up. So I would find anywhere where that person starts to get excited, lights up. Children, oh, that's easy. I'm working to this day with kids of the prisoners because we have a very high percentage recidivism rate of prisoners going back, and we have a very high rate of kids in the families that had somebody go to prison end up going to prison later because it gets in their heads. So I go over and I work with them, and I come in every week and I say, okay, we're going to do science. All we do is have fun. I find a bicycle wheel and we all hold it until the kids scream and jump up and down. And by the time I leave, the teachers are like, oh, he got them all wild again. But the kids had fun. And so the next time they can't wait. They say, oh, can we do some science? It's not the science. It's the what you said. What you said. You're hitting it exactly right. And thank you. Yeah.
John, there's a few people who are requesting access to the Teacher Bill of Rights. I don't think I see it on your website per se, or is it?
Bickert.org is the website. If you hit the 20, that's right on the front, the 20 opportunities, it's right under it's on that page, the Bickert Bill of Rights. All of my, everything, I've got 4 books out, and everything is international right to copy. You may copy any of it in part or in whole and use it anywhere you want, as long as not for commercial reasons. And all of the books are at Amazon, but they're also on the website free, and all the Bill of Rights is free. And all of this presentation with all of my references and citations and all that stuff, there's quite a lot of research goes into it. I just don't name it all because it's such a head thing, but it's all in there in the comments in the PowerPoint, all my references. So,
Thank you.
yep.
It's really nice.
Yep. Ben
Thank
Franklin
you so
tried to
much.
start that with our country and say, you shouldn't have intellectual property rights. And I agree.
Well, thank you, John, and thank you everybody for sharing this experience with us, with John and myself. And I hope that you'll be back tomorrow. In the morning, we have Tim Shriver, and there's just so much. This is everything, and yet there's more. Blessings, everybody.
Thank
Okay,
you,
thank
Renee.
you.
Hi, Wes.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Andy.
Have a
John,
nice
thank
evening.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I will see all of you back tomorrow.
Okay,
We'll be
bye.
back. Bye.
Thank you, Renee.